for over 30 minutes. Okay, so I'll start. So first of all, thank y'all for all getting on the call and for being my friend. Anyway, I learned about this podcast from my friend Noleka, and she is a podcaster who I met at Dumbo House, and she and her husband started a podcast network called Domino Sound, and all of the podcasts on the network are dope. I got introduced to it through her show, which is called Raising Rebels, which is a show about oppressed parents raising free children. And I don't have kids, but it was still like a dope podcast just to listen to. And then when the cheat code came out, I at first tried to listen to it, and I think I was like, normally when I listen to podcasts, I listen to podcasts in the morning while I'm getting dressed and like taking a shower and like getting dressed. I really do get dressed every day, get dressed for the day, and then I tuned out. So the first time I actually tried to listen to it was months ago, and I was just like, I thought that they were just telling. I was like, you ever be listening to a podcast and it kind of like you get bits and pieces. I wasn't paying attention, and I originally thought the podcast was about them being. I thought they were married, and I thought it was a story about them cheating on each other. I didn't listen to it, and then it just started coming up over and over again. I kept seeing it, and I was like, "Yo, let me re-listen to this." And so I started re-listening to it, and like within the first maybe 3 episodes, I was like, everybody needs to know about this podcast. Like, this, and y'all know I don't watch reality TV, so like my juicy content is very limited. So it's just like, I love this. And then I sent it to all of y'all, and y'all listen.
You did. Yeah, you did. You sent it to
You
all of
hit
them.
me up for sure.
Yeah.
For strong recommendations. Okay, so
For
where
sure.
did y'all listen to the podcast?
Same place as you, running. Not only did you hit me up about this podcast, but you also put me on a running challenge. I mean, I appreciate it for the results. However, it was a struggle at the time. So yeah, I listened to it and I feel like the dramaful parts, I was like, oh, and then it got calm, and I was like, oh, okay. And then something else would happen. I was like,
ah! Same here. I was doing the May Century Run Challenge with you, and I checked out the podcast, and when I got into it, it was actually my motivation to actually get out of the bed and go run in the morning. So I'm like, oh, I got to see what's going to happen next. Oh, let me see this next episode. So
it's funny.
To the end.
Yeah. I only ran once while listening to it. Most of the time I was just lying on my back in bed, just like staring at the ceiling in awe of the like, yeah, the fuckery, the ratchetry, all the Louise. Yeah. But also not that much in awe because like real life, right? We've all been adjacent to something like that.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
Yeah. I like how you're like, we've all been adjacent.
Right.
None of us have been involved in anything like that.
Some of y'all were involved in something like that. I don't know who though.
Yeah,
and it's so funny because
friends.
I think when I first like was trying to share it, I was also trying to like, I think a lot of people were like, I'm not listening to this because I don't want to hear a story about people cheating. But what about the story, or like what I told you, or maybe what you heard in the first episode was like, all right, I want to listen to this because I know, okay, we got somebody who's married on the call. Tamara's married, has been married for like 4 or 5 years now.
No, 6.
Ooh, 6 years. I'm old. Toussaint is engaged.
Has it been that long?
Toussaint is engaged. Ashira is in a long-term relationship. Okay. And I'm single-ish. And so I guess like what about it kind of like made you guys want to listen to it? Because I feel like people are like, if I'm in a relationship, why do I want to hear about people cheating?
Well, that's the exact opposite of what I thought when you when you suggested it. I thought it was about someone who somehow got away with and was going to reveal like all of their secrets. And not that I needed to like learn from a podcast on how to like screw up my own relationship. I just thought that it would be juicy and fun and interesting and scandalous. And it was all of those things, but also they did kind of get caught in a major way. And then broke the major rule of like getting with each other. I did not expect that, and I was highly disappointed initially that they thought that they fell in love with each other. So I don't know if we're getting ahead of ourselves, but that part was not expected. I just thought I was just going to have some like, fun trash TV in the form of a podcast, and it turned out to be something a little more substantial, which was fine, you know.
Same here. Like I was here for the juiciness, the ratchetness, something to take me out of, being stuck in the house. And when I didn't like do any review of it. I just like tuned in right away. And so I thought it was two people talking about how they were cheating and got away with it or what happened. And then as I started listening to it, I was like, oh, wait, you guys are the cheaters and y'all got together. So I was like, oh, this is good. So it just kept me coming back. I was like, oh.
I think that cheating is psychologically fascinating. I think the way that people rationalize things and the way that I feel like a lot of times people have to create like this cognitive dissonance in order for them to have space to actually be vulnerable. And so I was just interested in their story and how that happened. I just thought it was really interesting, actually. And then also, like, I mean, I've been cheated on, I've been cheated with, right? So like, there are all kinds of sides to this, and I just find human behavior very interesting, and I wanted to listen to all of the ways they decided.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I go back and forth on like if humans are supposed to be monogamous. So I always ask that question. So I was already like, all right, I want to know the details. All right, so one of the questions they asked, music was a big part of the show, similar to our show, but what was your favorite song and what song surprised you? I can start because I know we all listened to this a long time ago and we may not remember.
Right.
I remember listening, I think it was the episode when they have sex, which, by the way, I was so ready for them to have sex. So I was like, y'all deserve this.
Girl,
and I can't believe that, like,
girl.
I was actually cheers on. I was like, no, you deserve this. Because they had sex after Andrea, I think, had already, like, after her husband had found out. And so I was, like, ready for them to have sex. And they started, I think it was either Jill Scott Crown Royal. I think it was Jill Scott Crown Royal, which is, like, whenever I think about sex, I think about that song. I mean, that boom, 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 boom. And, it's just like, all right, it's going down. And I was like, right. And then I was at a song that surprised me. Honestly, the music was all over. Like, it wasn't, I couldn't really understand, like, the person who was producing it, what type of music they like. Like, if you listen to our show, it's like all hip hop. But then, we got Jill Scott. Then, like, randomly, we would have, like, some new kids, like, stuff. Like, Sarah talked about that song, This Pussy Be Yanking. And I was like, we did have that in there. And I remember certain songs, I was like, City Girls, and, like, I didn't even know about. I was like, I got to add this to the playlist. So they had some new music in there. They had some old music in there. They had some Wu-Tang in there. And then they had, not Wu-Tang, Mobb Deep. They had Mobb Deep in there. And then I don't know, there was like gospel music at one point, and I was just like, how do we get here?
Any podcast that can combine Pussy Be Yanking with gospel music, I feel like that was my favorite song and the one that surprised me, Yankin, because that song, okay, so backstory, my cousin introduced me to that song after like there was some show
Oh, so
on
you
like
already knew about
HBO where like these, there's a show on HBO and like you know these like white people get married and like afterwards it's a sex scene and like they play Yankin and it was like the most hilarious thing and I could not like that song would pop into my head at the most inappropriate times and I like giggled to myself. So like the fact that they put that in this podcast was just like a little inside joke to me.
Yeah,
Oh,
I
that's
think
funny.
it's crazy. I think they put like Pussy Be Yankin and then the like gospel song in the same episode. So it
Was it
was
the same
like
episode?
back to back. I think so. It was like Pussy Be Yankin, and then you hear, if we ever needed the Lord before, we need him now. I was like,
They ain't lying though. Like at the point
Real
that you're
talk.
playing Yankin, you probably do need
no, that's life. That's life. My favorite song probably was "Shy" because I like old school R&B.
Oh yes, they did have
If
Shy.
I ever fall in love,
Yes.
that is my
Yeah.
shit. So,
Yeah.
I think mine, honestly, the theme song. And I'm not super familiar with the song, but it's literally stuck in my head constantly for the past. It's like I have a couple of songs that are like Corona soundtrack, like when I'm telling this story to my grandchildren, several decades from now, and I'm like painting the picture and the soundtrack, it's going to be some of those songs from Tiger King for sure, because they're slaps for sure. The first few tracks on the J Electronica album, and then the cheat code theme song. And
The
it
theme
kind
song.
of
What did it go like?
doom 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 doom.
Oh
Yeah.
And then
yes.
and the rapper kind of has a style like No Name. I don't actually know who the rap artist is, but it's kind of like monotone but rhythmic, and it just kind of seeps into under your skin, and it just kind of does a lot for me, and it's one of those things that like before you know it, you're kind of just like vibing to it, and it's like it's the theme song to being ratchet but making justifications for it.
right.
Anything
Oh,
surprise
and then
What's the question?
you? Did anything surprise you? A song surprise you?
um I think everyone else is saying it, but like, yeah, throwing that gospel in there was not expected, but they were saying a lot about their past and things that they had to learn and unlearn. And so I guess it's no secret that they came from that environment, and like many of us have. So it does kind of all make sense. And I started to, usually when it's something ratchet, I'll tell my mom about it. And then like if my mom is into it enough, she might tell my dad, and they'll be like, my parents try their best to be pretty hip, and I was gonna put them on, and then when they threw that gospel in, I was like, nah, that's not gonna
Backstory:
work.
Toussaint's dad is
Too
a
much.
pastor. Toussaint's dad's a pastor.
Yeah.
That
What were you
made
gonna
it
say,
too far.
Tam?
that George Michael surprised me. I forgot about that at the show. It was like "Careless Whisper." That's another jam.
Okay. What had you in your feelings? I know for
That's a good one.
me, I was in my feelings the whole damn time. But I really started to dig into my feelings when there was a moment in time when Andrea was like, her shit was all clean. She was like done with her ex, living in an apartment, living
Right.
life, like getting back on track. She was like working out and like she was just like, I was like, yeah, girl, like live your best divorce life. And then Jason was still going through shit with his ex. And I felt so like in hearing her describe it, first of all, I am so amazed at their memory and the ability to retell this story with a level of detail. Like I felt every DM. I mean, they were so descriptive, but like the fact that she kind of like remembered those feelings, and the fact that she also at the same time was so self-aware that she understood his side too, that like she had to feel these things, but he had to also like take care of his family and like really do things the right way, and the fact that she was able to respect that. But I can only imagine how that shit felt. And then her husband was trash. Like he treated her
He
like
was
he was
trash.
just trash.
He was trash. Yeah.
I think what had me in my feelings was when Jason had to sit his girls down and tell them that their family was breaking apart, or their family as they knew it, at least, and their living arrangement and all of that would be different, and they did not take it well. I've kind of reflected on that, and just, a lot of times when you're doing stuff you're not supposed to be doing, you're not thinking of like the downstream ramifications of it. And like and if you're a moderately decent person but not super decent, you might think, oh man, I might be breaking this woman's heart that I'm in love with. But you don't think about those kids when you're being ratchet, and that kind of got me. It kind of shook me to my core, and I was like, how would you explain to two little girls that, the thing that they always knew to be home and comfortable was no longer going to exist, and then that someone could reword that narrative, or take control of that narrative and say it's because you were selfish, not because of both people having issues and they married people, or married at the wrong time. It was, you were being selfish, you were being a liar, you were being a cheater. So that was kind of a scary thing, and I don't even have children.
Yeah, I think I was in my feelings / a little confused. The scene where Jason goes home to see his family and his not wife goes with, and then they just like talk about casually domestic violence, and they're just like, right, and then like, she hits him and everything, and like, that's horrible, and then he's like, yeah, and I was violent sometimes too, and I was like, wait, what? Like, somehow I was willing to accept him as a cheater, but like not as like an abuser, and it was just really hard for me to actualize in my mind somebody who could be physically abusive and like be this likable person that I was just like, listening to on this podcast,
Maybe I missed that. So Jason said that he was physically abusive too?
Yeah, he said that he was. Yeah. He said that there was just physical abuse in the relationship, that they were both abusive to each other. He didn't describe exactly the way that he was abusive to her, but the idea of a man putting his hands on a woman for any reason, and honestly a woman putting her hands on them, like, really, people just should not, like, there's too many people die in relationships like that, so that really bothered me. And I didn't like that Andrea didn't address that. The idea, you can say all you want, oh, well, you lose them how you get them, and all this stuff, and once a cheater, always a cheater, whatever, right? But cheating is not the most dangerous thing that can happen in a relationship. And I feel like that just was just like, oh yeah, they were in a bad relationship, and then sometimes they hit each other, and like everybody just moved on. I was like, whoa, wait, what? Like, that seems like something you don't want to carry into your new relationship.
Yeah,
everything you said, that was the part that had me in my feelings, because he said it so casually. It was like, oh wait, hard pause. Like,
y'all, I do not remember this.
Yeah, I felt mad sexist because I didn't even, it went right over my head as a dude with my blind spots.
So it was a part where they were like in Atlanta visiting his family, and I think she sent him a text message, and the wife read it, and I don't remember the exact physical altercation. Maybe she threw something or hit him.
He threw a phone. She threw a phone.
Okay. Yeah. So, and it even shows like she's had this behavior before, because she's doing this in front of his family, so it's like no big deal. Yeah, and then for like the next, partner just to be okay with that, or not be concerned, or to be casual about it as well, it was like, oh.
Yeah, that was mad concerning.
Like one thing I will say that and we might have to log off and log back in. But one thing I will say is that I I think one of the I don't know how I missed that. I'm actually shocked that I missed that because that would have changed my whole perspective as well. Um I do think that sadly when I hear older people, especially older people who are not in our generation talk, I like give them somewhat and I shouldn't. But like when I watch older movies or when I talk to my aunts and them, I just realize that I don't know. I don't want to yeah, actually I don't know. I don't know why I missed it. It's just yeah.
I mean, how much older are they than us? Like I feel like they're not that much. Like,
Maybe
and
like
I know
8
what
to
you're,
10 years older, maybe. That's what
Yeah.
I
okay.
guessed.
Okay. Because I mean, like I know, and then I know what you're saying. And also growing up in the South, I feel like there was so much abuse that people just never talk about. And this was like accepted, you know?
Right.
And not that it made it okay,
No, it's not okay
but
at all.
you sort of like read it like the way that you would read like sexism in an old cowboy movie or something like that. Like, oh, the times, you know. But like
And yeah.
this seemed, I don't know.
No, for sure. I mean,
Problematic.
there were other parts of it where I was just like, that would not fly in 2020. Nope. Nope. There were certain times where both of them kind of like talk about the way that they dated in a way that probably wouldn't be acceptable now, and different parts of their relationship. And I was just like, I think kind of like glancing over it. I definitely don't remember the abuse thing. I kind of remember Jason talking about them being verbally abusive, pretty bad, and them arguing and fighting, pretty bad. But yeah, I was in my feelings the whole damn show. The whole damn show. But I enjoyed it. I really enjoyed. I felt like I got like an insider view. So the next question is, what are the lessons?
I think one of the things that stood out to me is that this pair, or I guess all four of them, but Jason and Andrea in particular, they admitted that in both of their relationships that they kind of didn't do the work on the front end. I think Jason, the way he retells the story, it seems as if he might have been with the absolute wrong person, and that no amount of work would have done the trick. But the way Andrea kind of tells her stories, it seems as if they worked on things early and focused on a bunch of other things, working on themselves and then working on themselves together as a couple, they might have made it. And as someone who just committed the rest of my life to a relationship and has been, trying to do work on the front end, it just showed me that you can never do too much and you have to really take this thing seriously. I did feel for both of them because they both seemed so miserable in their current situations before they got together, that I'm like, how do I avoid ever being that miserable? I so many people get married and end up in that situation. And I sent my fiance the podcast, or at least told her about it. I don't know if I sent it to her, and she wasn't interested in it, and it wasn't one of those things where she was like, I don't want to because it's going to traumatize me. She just had zero interest, very passively. But I sent her a TED Talk by Esther Perel, who examines why people cheat. And it was very intriguing to both of us. And I think we learned quite a bit about just the human need to feel wanted and the human need for excitement, and how marriage makes that difficult because you're basically roommates. And if you have kids, you're roommates and you're running a small business. And like, how do you like keep things sexy?
Yeah, is that what's happening over there? You running a business?
Pretty much. Oh yeah. I'm an entrepreneur for sure.
Yeah, it's an operations position. Being a mom or a dad is a like pure operations. You need a PMP, probably.
C-suite over here. C-suite.
So yeah, so when do you get time to like just have fun and enjoy each other and have like that passion that you had when you were pursuing each other, you know? So that's kind of what stuck out to me, how to keep that going.
Geez, this is kind of controversial to say. I learned like I this is horrible actually. I was just like, why was there so like why was it so easy for them to like they just didn't clean up enough? And I was just like, it was messy. It was just so messy. And I was just shocked at how messy it was because they're such like intelligent people. And I blamed it on the fact that like maybe they just don't know technology well enough to know that like, you know, shit sticks on your computer. But when Jason was like tracking his wife's like computer behind her back, like I was like, yo, so you actually do know better. Y'all just don't do better. So that was one thing. I was like, I mean, not to say I would promote it, but I was just kind of like shocked that they didn't. I think another lesson, I think the biggest takeaway I had was just like be careful with who you marry. I actually don't think that Toussaint, I actually don't think that if they had done the work in their original relationships that it would have made a difference. To me, it felt very much so that like Andrea and Jason were meant to be. And it to me just sounded like, and I think all of us can relate where it was very kind of like reminiscent to hear them like both going to HBCUs and kind of like living in this small little network of Black professionals where everybody knows everybody and people get married a lot of times for the wrong reasons, right? Because, you know, you cute, you got a good job and we can laugh together. And so like went to see them kind of like get older and then the way that they talk about the things that drew them to each other. So like in the first couple of episodes, and this like really resonated with me because this would be my thing. They were like talking about like hip hop and they were like really like he dropped a playlist and she was like, yo, that's my life. And they just had like a unique connection. And perhaps that could have even been a friendship. I always say that like Black men don't look at Black women for friendships. And that probably has a lot to do with the success of the relationship. But like the fact that they were able to bond over things that normally like things that me and you Toussaint bond over, it seemed really unique to them. And then to throw the romance on top of it, it just felt like the whole time they married the wrong people and didn't do the due diligence way early on to make sure that, you know, they would marry the right people. I don't know.
Interesting take.
So I see your point about how they had just so much chemistry and connected. They were connected, but we don't really know about the chemistry or connection they had with their spouses. So, I mean, that could have been there too. So there was a reason they got married, you know? And I just think that one of the lessons is that they needed to put in the work because there was a connection. You married the person, you had children with them. So, I mean, it seems like they did very little. They never really talked about like therapy or what have you. And it just seemed like to me, you can just go from one person to the next and you can have issues. And if you don't do anything about them, I mean, it's repeating the same cycle. Yeah, so I really don't know about their partners. They really didn't give much information on that, but I think that, and then another lesson I think was if you plan on leaving your marriage, it shouldn't be for some person, like, because she left her marriage and she was just off like, oh, you know, watching him still play out his from the sidelines and like hoping and wishing that he would get out of it and what would happen to her if he didn't. So if you want to get out of your marriage, it should be for reasons other than just this other person. It should be like, I don't know. It shouldn't be dependent on another person. I don't think.
Yeah, I felt like I will say. Oh, I was just gonna say I will say one thing I felt was that they were pretty, and maybe it's hindsight, but when they were describing, I felt like they were pretty like self-aware and realizing that like that I didn't get the impression they were leaving their marriages to be with each other. I got the impression that their romance kind of like put the accelerator on something that they were already kind of like, what am I doing here anyway? And so I kind of felt like, yeah, I kind of felt like they, and a lot of times they talked about kind of like the logistics, like no one should ever leave their marriage to go jump into something else. I think Andrea says that a lot, that she was worried that Jason, wouldn't want to move forward and wants time to be single, et cetera, et cetera. So, yeah.
I just think that, I think that their marriages, I think they were in bad relationships. And I think that instead of deciding I'm going to leave, they decided they both were setting out to cheat at the beginning, right? So it's not like they just happened to find someone who they just really had this connection with. Like when Jason went out to that bar, he was like, I'm going to cheat now because there's no way, like he had some dogma about marriage. There's no way I'm going to leave my marriage, but I'm having so much dissatisfaction here that I need this. Right. So I think that,
and she was pregnant.
That was real trash,
yeah.
But whatever.
Yeah.
We're twins. Yeah.
We're twins.
So,
yeah.
So, I mean, I feel like to me, the lesson is really, really, really be honest with yourself and with your partner. Like, I feel like the reason why he and Andrea worked in the end is because, a lot of people think of their marriage the way they think of a job, right? I need to be this in my marriage. I need to be that kind of father. I need to be that kind of mother. And it becomes like this obligation. And it does not become a space where you can be raw and vulnerable and honest. It becomes a space where there are expectations for you to fulfill. And I feel like they compartmentalized that, and then they had their cheating relationship. And because, no judgment zone, we're both cheating and being dirty, they had a kind of vulnerability with each other through all of this, and actually nurtured each other through this in ways that they didn't allow their marriage to function in their lives, And so I think that there is a weird, paradoxical emotional health that they could find in their cheating relationship that they couldn't find. And I even said, like Andrea says this a couple times, once we were actually deciding to be a couple, this was no longer the vacation, like now this is the relationship where there are the obligations. And I think that there's just this escapism that they were both indulging in, and that there's no escapism in marriage. You cannot compartmentalize, because when you're making those partitions, you're basically making space for you to do some shit you ain't got no business doing.
Real talk.
And then I think like her mindset was like, people cheat forever and you don't get a divorce. So
which is crazy.
I was like,
the funny thing is, it seemed very much so like, even like when they started to really feel each other before they even like got caught and stuff like that, like they were very okay with just living a double life. Like they were like,
right.
We're just going to
want to leave their spouse.
Like they went into it to lead a double life.
Right.
Yeah, they kept saying that. Like I didn't want to leave my husband. He didn't want to leave his wife. It almost
and I just like the denial. They just had so much denial about it. Like clearly their relationships were over, right? Like, and let's be honest, both of their partners were already cheating on them, right?
True
so like
story.
these were not
that
healthy.
shocked the shit out of me.
That did shock me, but like and they were cheating like real. They were like really cheating. Yeah, so like both of them. So like those relationships, like there was clearly a deterioration, and the final nail in the coffin was this love relationship that they each developed. But they went into it thinking, my relationship's good. I'm gonna just get this ass on the side and come on back because this is what we're doing. There's just like so much denial that they had about this.
That's true. I forgot that they all were cheating. All four of them.
Everybody.
Two of which we didn't even know. And I kind of wonder. Yeah, it would be a great show. I mean, it should be the spinoff of Insecure, right?
Right.
Because we already know where that's headed.
Or
but
do we? Yeah.
I mean, I have some theories for a different podcast or a different conversation. But yeah, I honestly think how would this show have been different if any one of them had absolutely devastated their actual partner, and their partner was doing all of the right things, and it was just like,
Yeah.
or maybe not doing all of the right things, but just not cheating, and still
Right.
this thing came up. I wonder if either of them would have had the strength to leave that relationship. I really don't know. And I think a lot of people are in that situation right now.
I don't think Jason would have. I don't think Jason would have. Like, the way that he was hanging on to that did get me in my feelings. The way that, like, Andrew was like, okay, I'm done with this. And Jason was like, but let me just move in with her and get her through this medical emergency. I was like,
Right.
Wait, after she did what she did in Atlanta, yo, that would have been it for me.
Yeah, you're
but
done.
I was like throwing things. I was like, what?
And that's how I knew both of these people were way more square than I was. I know how I present, but I know for sure they were both they broke all of the G code rules, all of them. And I was cringing all the way through that just as a person on the sideline. And then on top of that, they're going to fall in love with each other and then keep it messy because Jason wouldn't leave this woman. And she, I don't know if his ex is a hypochondriac or what, but it was mad convenient that, like, every time he was about to get himself up to leave, there would be a new issue in place. And I think like a real G, which is like a messed up kind of term, but like a real dude, and I'm watching my language, wouldn't have taken that. He would just been gone in the first place. So that's at least how you know he was a decent human, even with all of his flaws. Because I know a lot of podcasts would have gone very differently with a lot of people I know and a lot of my former personalities, maybe even.
But I actually felt like he was using this marriage almost like a crutch or something. Because the thing is, so he made this point over and over that the reason why he hung on to this is because he did not want to lose his children, right? Don't lose my children, don't lose. I'm a divorce lawyer. I know how this goes, right? And like he made it seem like he was trying to hold up the family. And then they get a divorce, and then his ex-wife is like not there for the kids, and he was like a single father for a while, right?
That was a shocker.
That was a shocker, but I'm like, you know who you're married to. Did you really think that this woman was going to take these kids from you? Did you think that, you know what I'm saying? Like, I felt like there was a fantasy that he had that was allowing him to hold on to this under false pretenses, you know?
I think a lot of people do that. Like,
yeah,
I think a lot of people do that. Like, this kind of gets me to something, Toussaint, you mentioned. It's another question, which was, what is something you heard Andrea or Jason say that you never heard said out loud? Actually, that's not what I was thinking. I was going to say, what is something that shocked me? Something that left my mouth wide open was when Jason was talking about his ex-wife. And I can't remember what he asked her. Maybe y'all remember the exact words. But he kind of asked her along the lines of like, do you love me? Or like, do you want to be with me?
Oh,
yeah. And she was just like,
what if it doesn't work out with this other guy and it doesn't work out with you?
Yeah, that's what it was. That's what it was. That's what it was. And Toussaint, maybe that's what I thought she was talking about when she said that. Because when she said that, I was like, yo, like, first of all, that's bold as fuck, especially if this is somebody that's like taking care of your whole entire, like, girl, that's not even strategic. Second of all, like, the fact that he was just like it hurt him, and he was like, wow, but it still wasn't like the end.
Enough for him to leave.
Right.
That was abusive. That was an abusive relationship. That part, like when she said that, like I was actually running at the time, and I had to stop because I was just like, like it just hurt my feeling. Like if someone ever said that to me that I loved, and like, oh my God, that is like the most selfish thing that you could say. That's like the most selfish thing you could say in that moment.
That's not what you're okay. So the question is, what is something that Jason and Andrea say that you should never say out loud, or that you never heard said out loud? They didn't say that, but she saying that was something that I felt like that's not some shit you say out loud.
You say out loud.
At least not
yeah.
to at least not to the person that you're dating. Like you say that to your friends.
Yeah.
Like that's
Right.
and not in a group text. You say that on the phone.
That's in your head. You keep that in your head.
You do.
Keep it in your head.
You do keep that in your head.
But anyway, was there something that you heard Andrea or Jason say that you never heard out loud, or you never heard said out loud?
I never heard, met, experienced any cheating ass person who's gonna make out in the middle of the street in the city that they live in. Like that was
Same.
I was just like floored by that. I was like, why would you? So it might not have been a said out loud thing, but it was a do out loud thing. Like, and that's how I knew these people were not sophisticated in their ratchetry, which meant, again, that maybe they were right for each other all along. But I was like, you guys are idiots. And I was, at that point, I was hoping someone would catch them because at that point, I was tired of them. I was getting annoyed with both and their novice behaviors.
Tell us again how you've been adjacent.
Very close. Some of my best friends, I've heard.
I thought there was one thing that Andrea said that, I mean, it wasn't, I just thought this was put in a clever way and I thought it was like insightful. So maybe not surprised necessarily. But she talked about how when they would go out to eat, Jason would like do his cufflinks and he was just really like a man, right? And she said, you know, when someone does man the way that you're used to, it's, you know, men behaving, it's just, there's something really attractive about that, right?
Oh,
like
that was toxic. That was something I was like, okay, we're gonna let her pass with that one. I remember.
I know you thought that was toxic, but also I was like, that's so true though. Like, and we all grew up in the South. Like, we grew up in the South with these like real problematic masculinity, like toxic masculinity men. But also, that shit is low key like real attractive in my opinion. Yeah. I'm sorry, Janina.
We like a little toxicity. We like a little toxicity. You need a little bit. You do.
Yeah, right. But when she said that, I was like, that's real. I felt it. You know.
That did stand out to me too, and I just wondered what her relationship with her father or uncles or maybe older siblings was like, and if it's positive, I get it. But if they had a lot of baggage from toxicity, and it seemed like it might have come from family, so that was a little confusing for me. But yeah, so I guess if I have to pick a side, I'm on Janina's side. But I also am not like a man's man, you know. That's not me, and I do just fine without being like that.
I think Andrea may have alluded to daddy issues at some point. I don't know, but I think I remember saying that. Or something that I heard that I can't believe they said out loud was that again, Andrea, she was basically saying that marriage to her was like being as faithful and committed for as long as you can be. And I was kind of like,
who taught you that?
All the information about marriage, like her, like, yeah, how she summed marriage up is just really, like, she dropped all those things. And it was just, like, shocking. And, like, you said it out loud. Like, ooh. Yeah. So, I mean, and if her view of marriage or nothing has changed or hasn't worked through some of those things, does she still, like, is there still her same view? Like, is she going to the next marriage or relationship just, I'm trying to be as faithful, as committed as long as I can be? That is not going to work.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was one of those moments where you're like hearing all these bad things about their partners, and then they say something like that, and you're like, maybe it's you. You know,
like,
have you ever considered?
You know, I was wondering, I think like a couple of things. So one, I think it was obvious to me that Jason had toxic family when he went to Atlanta. When he went to Atlanta and all that shit went down and they were like, we're just gonna put her in a room and it's gonna be fine and whatever. I was like, what? And then like they just treated it like it felt almost like it was kind of like, you know, normalized.
Right, it was.
And then also the friends. Like I felt like I didn't really with Andrea specifically, like her and her husband's friends were like super connected. And I just felt like I wanted oh I just felt like I wanted to know more about the friend relationships and like how the friends were throughout all of this. Aww.
Yeah,
so cute.
one of the friends that intrigued me the most was Jason's ratchet friend who had a
The fuck
reputation
boyfriend.
for, yeah,
Yeah.
that guy. First of all, I'm sure if all of their friends are listening, they know who this dude is, and are they all still friends? And are we outing this guy in case he wants to change for his next situation? So that one stood out to me, and I just wondered, like if the group kind of looks down on that guy because he kind of threw up the alley oop, and obviously Jason dunked it into a new marriage. But I, 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 I don't know if I would have told that story in the way he told it, and I think that's part of like the cheat code or the G code or the guy code. Um, I'm Anytime I'm gonna make big mistakes and then make a podcast about it, I'm not gonna implicate anyone else because I think that's just a little messy for no reason. But I mean, they clearly they must still be friends because he talked about the guy who's not friends with anymore. So that guy must either live fully in his truth even now or has like completely changed his life.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I was just the friends. Like I was like, why? Because like Tam, our friend circle, we be about to kill somebody if they just don't return somebody's phone call. You left my friend on red? Oh hell no. But like the fact that I didn't think like Andrea's friends, I didn't hear any pushback from her friends, even the friends who were friends with him, about like how to heal from it. And I think that was the thing that was kind of worrying for me. Not so much of judgmental. I think she mentioned one friend who wasn't judgmental, and I can't remember who that friend was. But like, I was shocked that more of her friends weren't trying to get her to like get to this healing place, and even maybe like really reconsider what life should be like as a single divorced woman without Jason.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway,
I think they did though. I mean, I think so. I think it's a little bit weird because the way they told the story, they tried not to include too many people that were not a part of it, except for the fuckboy friend who apparently just got thrown under the bus. But yeah, like I mean, there was one episode where the episode where Jason finally did leave his wife and got the apartment and all, and he said it was like real schmegula and all that, right?
They some bougie black folks. They some bougie ass black folks. They were.
But I mean, no judgment zone. The point is, like I think in that episode, she talked about how she had friends who just on site were like, when you leaving this person, or like had something to say whenever they saw him.
Oh.
So I think there probably were friends who were. I mean, we all have girlfriends. Like I don't think any of us would allow our girlfriends to get away with this without saying anything for years on end.
That's true.
I think they were just. I believe they were just trying to omit that part.
Yeah. On the flip side, guy friends do not hold each other accountable
at all.
At all. It's like mind your business, unless you ask me for advice, and still I might mince my words a little bit. But if you really press me, I'll tell you ain't shit, and then we'll laugh about it, and that's it. And then you'll continue to be ain't shit in my presence, and I'll keep it quiet, even if our wives are friends or our significant others are friends. We're gonna keep it quiet. That's like kind of the code, and I guess that's got to stop.
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. What do you mean you guess? What do you mean you guess?
I mean,
yeah.
The looks around.
I thought you were gonna end with, and I'm trying to change this.
We've gotta stop it.
I get.
Like,
there's this certain weird part of masculinity where you
it's called toxic.
Yeah, no, but like there's within the realm of toxic masculinity, there's a like respecting people's boundaries to the point of that it's a fault. where you just don't mind other people's business. And I think, like, I know, you know, you went to Spelman, two of you guys went to Spelman, I went to Morehouse, and I was appalled by how you guys all knew each other's GPAs and shit. Like, that was like so off limits at Morehouse. Like I
Because
couldn't
y'all
even
was
imagine.
failing.
I wasn't, but some of them were. But I didn't know until I was walking across the stage in '07, and '08 came, and '09 came, and I was like, oh, okay, those were the dudes who weren't doing so well. But like, real talk, it's the culture is so different in groups of men, and that's personally why I don't spend a bunch of time with a whole bunch of dudes anyway, because I'd rather just be authentic. And I also just am not comfortable with calling most people out, period, men or women. So it works out that I just don't hang out with groups of dudes where I would have to call them out.
Our friend group, we will call you out and hurt your
We
feelings.
not nice.
We're not nice. I think
We
we
not
have a more
nice.
gentle way
Nope.
of doing it, but yeah. We hold one another accountable all day, every day.
I mean, part of the reason why I have friends is so that people make sure I don't, you know, in a vacuum be on some bullshit, you know, like
But
but
you don't know you're already on bullshit when you're on bullshit. Like, I don't need an
not
outside.
You do.
You
I feel like you just need your friends to be like, confirm it. Like, am I
We see
really
it.
on some bullshit? Or like,
well, because, and the other thing is you can rationalize a whole lot of bullshit. Because remember, when you're on that bullshit path, there was lesser bullshit and lesser bullshit and lesser bullshit, like before and before and before. And you must have like gone through a path of rationalizations before you got to this crazy bullshit, you know? And so you don't know exactly how much you stepped out until someone's like, hey, you know, come back here, you know?
Fair.
So what they have we have two more questions. One is, what is the cheat code?
I honestly don't know. They didn't describe it very well, whatever it is. I feel like they didn't do it well.
I think it's an interesting pun, because like if you go back to like the origination of the term, like it's probably a video game reference, right?
It
and
is.
The cheat code is a way to win without putting in work, right? Or a way to win in general, right? It's a shortcut. And I think they shortcutted, they needed each other as a cheat code to get out of marriages that they were otherwise not brave enough to leave on their own, that they knew were pretty bad marriages. And so it's a double entendre. They used cheating as their cheat code to get out of their marriage. But at the bottom line is, a better cheat code or a better fix or a better way to have been healthy all along was to be honest with themselves first. I think they both struggled with honesty with themselves. And then I guess once you're really in the practice of being honest with yourself, you can start being honest with other people. And to me, going into a marriage, well, it would have been this year, but it'll be next year because of Corona.
Y'all can still get married if y'all want
have to. Oh yeah, who knows? We haven't decided.
You can get married in your living room.
We could.
Cuomo said you could.
Yeah. So we're just I'm trying to figure out how to be honest without being that cliche radical honesty thing. Like I think people play around with that term so much. I want to know what it actually means, so that I'm not doing this podcast 10 years from now for myself. I don't want to be on season 4 of the cheat code. So yeah.
Although I have been thinking about what season 2 could be, and I really want to hear the other side of the story. I want to hear the other two.
Oh, that would be interesting. That would be, or
also,
really would.
Yeah.
Also wondered if they even know that this podcast is being made. Kind of felt a little bad.
They talked about it. There was an
episode
that came after their follow-up episode, and they kind of talked a little bit about reaching out to their former partners and kind of not getting permission but giving them a heads up. So it was part of it.
And I think Andrea reached out and Vives did not, because
really?
I mean, in that episode, because he said that he heard through other friends that she apparently had been listening to it. So it sounded like they had not had direct contact, but Andrea did say that she gave a heads up to her ex about it, for what that's worth.
I think that's an interesting thing that you said, the cheat code. I couldn't figure it out. I don't know if I have an answer for that one.
And that's
I
tough.
feel like yours is good.
That's tough because, like, if they meant it in a way, like, this is how you cheat and get away with it, that didn't happen for anybody. Like, all 4 of them. So, it's like, there is no cheat code.
There is none.
Yeah.
I remember at the beginning, they were kind of talking about, like, the initial, I guess, cheat code is don't have an affair or cheat with someone who has less to lose than you do.
Right.
So,
and they talked about, and in the beginning they talked so much about, like, oh, well, this is what you do when you cheat, and that's what you do when you cheat. And so I thought they were going to go on that theme, like there's a pyramid code to this. But then they kept, like, breaking the, like, at the point that they were kissing in the middle of the street, I was like,
right.
It's like,
right.
Okay.
I guess the code, like the original code or the rules, are rules to not get caught. And I think they were following a completely different code, and their rules were more centered around, like, being happy. And
it looks
like somehow they finally got there, with a lot of meandering paths, but they made it, I guess.
We hope.
So then the thing is like, what are your questions? And I
want to know.
Yeah, I feel like we're all about to say the same thing, but go ahead, Tam.
Yeah, I just want to know how they're genuinely going from 2 terrible relationships into another one without working on themselves, or just maybe they're going to therapy now, like working on that relationship, because it was really, really messy, I guess. I don't know. It's just,
I want to know,
how are they doing?
Yeah, I also want to know if that honesty that they shared as people who were cheating on other people is continuing now that they have their relationship with each other. You know, like, what kind of a dialogue do they have? Yeah, but they kind of alluded to working on themselves. Like, Andrea said this a lot, like, about how when she got married when she was really young, and there are things that she didn't understand, like how she was so pick me about it, and like some of her self-esteem issues. Like, she talked about that. Vives did not say as much of that, but maybe that's a man thing. I don't know. But yeah, like, I'm sure there was a lot of trauma that happened during that time period, and how did they not carry that into their relationship?
Yeah, it's a lot of healing that needed to take place before. Right. You don't want to put that on someone new. Yeah.
No.
So.
Yeah, the question I had is, did neither one of them, after this marriage, want to date around just a little bit, just to be single for a little bit in their, like, late 30s, early 40s, when they had a little money to actually play around with, or time or freedom, or with the kids being a little older? And it didn't seem, I did worry that they might have rushed into their new relationship. And I worried that they may have regrets in a few years. So I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah, that's the big thing I worried about, was like, to your point in the very beginning, or the big lesson, I was like, well, you need to know who you marry. And then, like, they know a little bit, but I don't feel like they really dive deep into why they cheated. I don't feel they really dive deep into why they decided, like, it. My biggest concern that they were somewhat emotionally dependent on each other, and that was fueled by the cheating. And I was curious as to, like, what is their relationship now that part is gone, but they're still dealing with all this trauma. So I was just like, are they together now? And if so, like, what does that look like? It also wasn't clear, like, where they are now. Like, are they married? Are they still dating?
Mm.
The kids obviously hang out with each other and stuff, but like,
Right.
yeah.
Yeah, as of the last episode, they're still married and they have kind of embraced each other's kids and seem to be stable. That's the impression that
I haven't listened to
they
the follow up.
communicated. Yeah.
Yeah. Though they also said that she was like a relationship counselor or something like that, and then he was a divorce lawyer. And I was just like, I don't know if I'm gonna take your advice. Right? Like I don't like now hearing about how this burned to the ground, you know. Like yeah. And that sounds more judgmental than I meant it to be, but they certainly got to a happy place through trial and error in a way that I didn't necessarily want to do in my relationship, you know.
I think one thing that kind of like, and this is just answering separate questions. I think one thing that surprised me when listening to it, I didn't think that I was gonna, like, you know how you watch a movie or a show, you grow close to a character. I don't feel like I was growing close to either one of them, but I was growing close to like the excitement and the way that they like them. I was growing close to their happy moments. I hated hearing the bad ones, but when they talked about the happy moments and they talked about each other, it was just such, if I take the situation aside, it was something that I really kind of like fell for. And I was like, wow, I really like this. I really like hearing him talk about her. I really like hearing her talk about him. I mean, and the level of detail that they do it, I'm like, damn, am I trash? Cause like, I don't feel like I do that. But yeah, and I also, liked the conversations that we had all offline about it. I know Toussaint and I were like, Vives dropped how much money?
Yeah, what was that?
Girl.
Like, if she didn't notice that money going out of those accounts, you're just gonna drop that. Like, maybe I'm not doing the kind of work I need to be doing so that amount of money doesn't get noticed disappearing.
Actually, I was in my feelings about that. Like when she was like, "Oh, he's such a good man. He gave me all this money so that I could move," and I was like, "He has a whole family. Like his kids need that money. What? Like side chick money? Like I would be furious."
That's the rule breaking that I'm talking about. You don't drop thousands of dollars on a side chick, even if that's your future wife. Wait till she's your current wife if you're going to drop that money. I found myself getting angry constantly at this podcast, but I couldn't stop listening.
And then he was a family law attorney, so you're like, you know better. You know you can't drop no 5K on a side piece.
Oh my god.
Hello?
You
Oh my
just
God.
leaving. Yeah. I wonder how their divorce ended up.
And then, y'all, it was a couch too. A couch on his credit card.
Right.
I'm like, oh, come on.
I have to say, and maybe this is problematic, but whatever, this is how I feel. Like if I was in a relationship and there was cheating, I would be upset. If I was in a relationship and thousands of dollars was missing from our account, I would be livid. Like,
you're going to get it back at the end of the divorce.
Wow.
Run it back.
That really made me like, what? And I was also concerned. I couldn't understand it. It's not any of my business, but they talked about their money a lot. And they talked about like, yeah, they kind of like talk about their money and their success a lot. And I was kind of confused as to what the situation was. Because like at one second, he was dropping thousands on her for her new apartment and whatever. And then in the next second, he had to like struggle, like he had to get a struggle apartment. Yeah. And I was like, okay.
Right. And he said his credit wasn't that good. And I was like, shouldn't have bought that couch.
Yeah, well, I mean, it goes to, I think it was very clear that they were first generation upper middle class. And it showed. And I think that was a big part of all of those problems because they thought that money was going to solve all of the emotional trauma that they had growing up and with their families. And it was very clear that that was not the case. And I mean, even more so pronounced because this guy was a divorce lawyer. So he's seen all of these things close up with other families and still didn't seem to have learned his lesson. Unless he was just hiding all of this money the whole time because he was shook from being a divorce lawyer, which is, if that's the case, he might be a little bit more trash. I don't know. But also maybe a little more savvy than I'm giving him credit for.
Yeah. What was I gonna say? There was something I was gonna say. What was I gonna say? Damn it. I lost my train of thought. It was something about something that you and I talked about, Toussaint, or maybe we all talked about it. What do we talk about? We talked about the money. I'm blanking.
These side conversations. I don't know.
Ah, dang it. Ah, I'm annoyed that I can't remember. Anyway, uh, anything else? Toussaint, you had a conversation with one of your friends about it, right? You sent me a screenshot or something.
Many friends. I don't even know which screenshot I sent you at this point.
Wait,
I
so
was,
Toussaint, do you have guy friends that were checking it out?
no.
Okay, okay. I was just wondering.
Honestly,
Yeah,
it didn't even occur to me to send it to any dudes that I know.
Gotcha.
I think I'll send it to, like, I'm only in a couple of dude group chats, including, I have 3 brothers, so there are 4 of us. So maybe I'll send it to my brothers, and then there's a Morehouse guys chat that I'm a part of. I'll just drop it in there and see what they say. But yeah, this is all women friends of mine. Who? Oh, I remember.
I remember.
Let's see if it's the same thing. Okay, you go first.
All of y'all. At least, definitely Ashira and Toussaint. I don't know if Tam and I talked about this, but we were all like, I want to know what they look like.
Yep, that's it. That's exactly.
Yes.
I was like,
we were like,
right.
We were like, I want to know what they look like, and I was like, bet. And I don't know how, but I figured it out, and I got a picture, and they were exactly what I thought they would look like.
Exactly, 100%. If I drew it myself from my brain.
I know we have a lot of politically correct conversations about colorism and stuff going on, but I was like, how light-skinned is Jason? How light-skinned? I knew he was going to have some, like, level in the spectrum of light-skinned-ism. I knew he was going to be on that side of it. And I was definitely right. I think I even predicted the bald head. I was like, sounds like it. Andrea, I couldn't quite pick out. I knew she was going to have short hair because they talked about her haircut kind of. But Jason, I kind of knew what he was going to look like. He sounded like what he looked like.
100%. 100%. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, when I thought about how they looked, for some reason, like that Love Jones Nia Long popped up in my head. So like I knew she had a short cut. And the way that like she described her aesthetics and whenever she talked about getting dressed, oh my God. Like another favorite moment of mine.
The
We
cape.
have all done this. No, when she went to go meet, was it Jason's ex?
Yeah.
She was
Jason's
go
ex,
meet
yeah.
No, it was her husband's cheater.
Yeah, right.
No, it was her daughter. It was her husband's cheater, her husband's side piece to talk about their daughter and was like, listen, don't be leaving your shit at his house.
Right.
And I was like, and she was talking about getting dressed, and I was like, oh, I know exactly what she looks like. I could smell her perfume.
Yeah. Yeah. And she was like, and I would always wear a cape, and like I could just see her with the like fashion in it. Yeah.
Talking about going to the hair salon and was like
hair and makeup.
Right.
Yes.
That was a whole scene out of a 90s black rom-com for sure.
Absolutely, 100%. Yeah.
And talking about it with your stylist,
That was definitely theatrical.
Yeah. I felt like that was such a Scorpio thing to do. My sister's a Scorpio, and I'm like, yeah, I could see that. Hair and makeup and all that. Anyway.
Glad you remembered that one.
Yeah, that's what it was. I was like, what they look like. All right. Anyway, I thought it was like overall, I just liked hearing just them talk about their story.
Yeah.
I was just amazed that they just did it so like I was just amazed at how much they remembered I'm curious like how much research they had to do in order to like, I mean, they were like quoting DMs. I was like, whoa. He was
Yeah.
like, I think I said okay. And I was like, damn, you remember that?
I mean, granted, if they just made all that shit up, like I wouldn't have known. So, but still, I liked. Well, I guess this is one of the lessons. You know, because they were cheating with each other, they really just talked about everything, even like the grimiest parts of what they were doing with each other. You know, and I think that, or they gave that impression at least. But I think it's interesting because, like, in my current relationship, when we first got together, I felt like this nigga is so honest. He is too honest. Like, we would talk about stuff that I just did not care to hear about, you know? And like some of the stuff I was like, do I really need to know all of that, you know? And like, but now that we've been together as long as we have, I actually appreciate that we have that tradition. And I think that, like, being a very raw person with the person that you love is important.
That's a word.
Yeah, I commend them for the level of honesty and transparency that they have shared with us. I appreciate that. It was highly entertaining.
Mm-hmm. It was also entertaining.
Yep.
All right, y'all. Anything else?
I don't think so.
I think that's
This was
all I've
fun.
got.
Yeah. Shout out to the side pieces.
Shout out to the side pieces.
Oh, I had a friend. I don't know if this is going to be official, but I had a friend, and if he's watching, he knows who he is. He said his uncle always taught him never ever lie to the side chick. And when you think about it logically, it's actually very sound advice.
I cannot.
So
This is what we're doing, Toussaint? This is what
Did we
we're doing?
have to? But did we have
This is
to?
what we're doing.
we don't have to end on
So is
that.
that the cheat code? Is that the
Is
cheat
that
code?
right?
That may be it. That may be it. Because you might be
Wow.
lying to your future
Never
wife.
lie to the side piece.
Never
Never.
lie to the side piece.
Don't forget it, folks. And,
Cool.
yeah. I had to bring a trash male perspective to this. Come on.
I think that there's well, you showed out. I think that there's a different I think there's different levels to side piece. I think in this particular side piece situation, when they both have something to lose, it was very important that they be honest. But if the side piece was not married with a family, I don't think he would have been as honest.
And then that's when they can blow your whole life up.
Yeah.
That's true.
So, yeah, you don't want to catch them off guard, because then you don't want them to have a negative surprise reaction, because they hold a lot of things in their hands. So that's what I've heard.
Tangentially. In your position of being adjacent.
Absolutely.
Right.
Just looking
So
out of the window.
it sounds like
out
you
of the
don't want
blinds.
male friends because you don't want you don't want to be a part of it.
Yeah, I just rather, live my life with all the accountability in this room.
I love it.
There we go. We got you. See,
Thank you.
we're already there because we told you were being trash just after
I
you made that
appreciate
comment.
that.
Right.
I appreciate that.
Accountability.
But the people need to hear this. People need to hear what's going on behind closed doors. I'm just repeating. I'm an echo chamber. Just repeating things I've heard.
All right. I'm going. Y'all, anything else? Y'all want to say anything? All right. I'm going to stop.